Greetings gamers, KWK here with another long play for you, and today we're playing Larry and the Long Look for a Luscious Lover. This game is a recreation of Leisure Suit Larry from the PC back in the 80s for the NES. We're going to try it out today and see what types of differences that we're going to run into. Alright, well, it says, "Hi, I am Larry and I am 40 years old and still a virgin. Can you help me score tonight?" Well, seems like it still has the same plot as the original game, but the controls are kind of hokey at first. But apparently you just got to hit A and B for your action. And from here, it looks like a pretty accurate recreation from what the PC looked like. It's very similar. The controls are alright so far. As of right now, I'm just kind of going off my memory. This is the first time I've played this version of Leisure Suit Larry. I did play it a lot back in the 90s when I wasn't supposed to, and I do remember a lot of the basics. And I do remember when you go to the bar, you want to get a whiskey and carry it with you because a character can give you, I think it's remote control. But first thing I'm noticing right off the bat from looking back at this long play that I ran through is that there's no score meter on this one. On the original Leisure Suit Larry, for like an example right now, I threw some money into the jukebox to play a different tune. You would get some type of point for that, because that's just how the game worked on the original PC. But it just seems to be all novelty options here. It just says money is the item I currently have on me, and it actually shows how much money I have on me. But I do like how quickly you can save by going to select and start, and then your inventory comes up. And this is nice and convenient for an inventory, I'd have to say, but it does lose another gap of things from the computer version. Like in the computer version, you'd go to your inventory screen, you'd click the item, and then it'd show you a picture of the item, or a graphic. So I mean, I do understand there's limitations of doing this on the NES, but even so, it still seems like some things were cut out from the PC that really gave it a charm. But let's just see how far we can get with this, and it's following the story pretty accurate so far. I mean, this scene looks extremely accurate, going to the restroom. I remember doing this and finding it so entertaining and hilarious as a young child that shouldn't be playing this game. That you can go to a restroom in a game at the time was just, beyond my comprehension, so it was such a big deal. But now it's more of a novelty and a humorous thing to say that you're going to the restroom doing something in an NES game, to say the least. I do remember you having to read on the wall and kind of find the password, I believe, and then there'd be some kind of jokes or sayings on the wall. That was kind of another aspect that I actually enjoyed in the PC version, is it had more of a, we'll say, random factor, because in the PC version, keep in mind, you would actually type what you wanted to do. So you could type look at wall or something like that, and then it would give you some type of description, or maybe say some type of joke if you're looking at something. And that seems to be lacking in this version. But in the same token, I think the goal of the creator of this game was just out there to be able to showcase how you can port an old school PC game like this to the Nintendo successfully, which definitely they've accomplished that goal. It's just I don't know, it's not that this is a bad port in the least. It's a very good port for the graphics and kind of the control. But what really is lacking in this one is I'm kind of comparing this game to definitely how, I don't know if anybody's played King's Quest V for the original Nintendo that was ported by Konami. Now that game is incredibly large, and they ported it extremely accurately to the original Nintendo. I mean, I have to really applaud Konami and how they did that for King's Quest V, and that's kind of what I'm comparing this to, which is not really fair because this is really a homebrew port made by a very capable developer, Con Games, that has made a lot of other awesome homebrew games. And I'm not saying that this is bad in the least, but it's hard to compare expectations when I've seen other PC games ported to the Nintendo system and it didn't seem like they took much out of it. Now, I don't know if maybe they did it this way to make it easier for people to pick up and play. Maybe they made it this way because it was a limitation in the system. Because I remember in the King's Quest that was ported by Konami, you actually did use the mouse pointer and click, and that one was a point and click port. And this one is a text adventure port. So you know what? Now that I think about it that way, I can see why they did it the way they did, and it works pretty well. I mean, you're just basically clicking through A and B to get through all the actions that you need to do in this game to go through, and pretty much I'm playing completely off my memory of playing this game back in the past, and it's kind of nice to the point that it's more lenient the way this is set up. It seems that the story is, I don't know, more linear with the way this has been ported. Like in the PC version, there were a lot of we could say different loopholes and things that you could do that were kind of taken out in this one. I mean, they're not crucial parts. Definitely, all the meat and potatoes of this game is in this NES port. But there's some extras and odds and ends here and there that just either maybe didn't port over as well or were just taken out for whatever reason. I mean, an example that I noticed when I was playing this game is like there's certain characters, like the girl you're trying to score with, you could actually type, I remember on the PC, look at girl, and then it would show a completely different screen. And the completely different screen would be like a full snapshot of the girl looking at you, and then you would continue on. It'd be like you're face to face with her. On this one, they don't have that I know of. I couldn't get it to activate. Like this girl, for an example, that's on the screen, you would go up to her on the computer version and then be like, look at girl. And even when Sierra themselves made this game, the original, and ported it themselves, they always made, like, for some reason, point and click adventures. They changed the text ones to point and click. This one stayed text but Nintendo-y, if that makes sense, like a Nintendo version of it, and it turned out pretty well. I mean, don't get me wrong, this game was very fun. The only, complaints I'd really have about it is it just felt kind of short. I don't know how else to put it, that I kind of went through it, I muddled through. I'm really going off of memory this entire game. I didn't have to try or look up anything on the walkthrough, but I was a very big Leisure Suit Larry fan back in the day. I remember that I played Leisure Suit Larry 1 through 6, I believe, and I beat them all. I did eventually play and beat, I believe, the Xbox version of Magna Cum Laude. But, yeah, as Leisure Suit Larry 7's one I never got a chance to beat, just because that one never got to work right on the computer for me at the time when I remember trying to play it, and I just never got a chance to go back to it. Leisure Suit Larry 7 had some kind of weird glitch for me, but maybe one of these other days. But back to the game, like I was saying, right here, I gotta say the graphics, they did an awesome job. I mean, awesome. It looks almost identical to the computer version, if not arguably maybe better. I mean, it's all in how the style is. This is just excellent the way they did the graphics and kept everything the style that they did. But here's another example. I mean, you just go around and you click and you pick up everything you need. It's just going to automatically do it for you on this Nintendo version. Whereas, in the PC version, a big portion of the fun factor was you would say, look at shelves. You'd type that and hit enter. Then it'd give you a list of all these things on the shelves. and then you would type, okay, look at a specific type of item on the shelf, and then you would type take or buy or whatever you want to do from there, and it would be more interactive at the point where this one is you're just clicking random things and seeing what works and doesn't work. So it does take that, I don't know, that piece of the puzzle out of it. But even though that you are losing certain experiences from the PC version, you still got to keep in mind that this is still a fun, different experience with a very similar theme based off an original. So, I mean, maybe the way I'm looking at it is not fair, that I really shouldn't compare, say, the PC version directly to this, even though it's hard for me to do because I got so many great memories of playing and having a fun time on the PC version. Because you still got to keep it in the context of, hey, remember back in the day when they had released a game that was like for original Nintendo and they made a version for like Super Nintendo at one point in time? It just wasn't fair when you're comparing the Nintendo version to the Super Nintendo version. It's two complete different platforms, and comparing a PC version to an original Nintendo version is a pretty tough feat for the original Nintendo. But even so, it plays well. I mean, it has good mechanics. I mean, the movement's very smooth. The menu system works great. It's to the point. I do like how quickly I can save and load. The only problem I could foresee for some people, I mean, I was very careful, but you can only save one state, you know what I mean? So if you did something incorrect and you accidentally saved, and there's no going back, which I don't know if this game is designed that way, that you could make such a mistake and then save. It may be possible that later in this game you get to a casino that possibly you lose all your money and then you accidentally save and then you don't have any money. I don't know where you could get money other than at the casino. I mean, that's a possibility that could prevent something. Here's a classic moment in a game. It's one of the first games I remember ever seeing this ever happening in a game, to say the least. And seeing this being generated by an original Nintendo is just hilarious because, you know, the rating system would go off the wall for something like this on an original Nintendo game. I think that seal of quality would not allow this game to pass at the time, but I can definitely see it the way this game was made. Con Games has a great attention to detail that they did. I feel they definitely played through the original PC version and probably had a screen of it up right next to while they were building it, because they definitely, every little ounce that they could squeeze into this original Nintendo to, you know, show the accuracy towards the PC version was just spot on. I mean, between the coloring, the style, I mean, they did an awesome job, it looks like. The sound effects are awesome because they're Nintendo sound effects. The PC has their own like PC speaker sound to it, so it's pretty hard to, you know, make it identical to the PC in that respect. But you know what? It works well. I mean, it's just fun. It's like a Nintendo version. You know what I mean? Just take it for what it is as a game by itself. If you know you never played the PC version and you played this version, I actually think that this version would be much more welcoming to a newer generation that's never played this game than the original PC version, just because it's so much easier, this version, than the PC version. This version is pretty much I mean, how do you put it? Just hit the button and muddle your way through. There isn't so much text typing of, hey, look here, get an item there. It doesn't have that tedious factor to it as much as some people may feel exists in the old PC game. Me, I never felt it tedious because I grew up playing the text adventure games like this for the PC, and they were just fun. An addition that I saw here is the roulette. I don't remember roulette being an option on the PC version. I think that might be an addition. I also noticed that you can't play blackjack unless you have a certain amount of money on this one. And I don't know exactly why they did that on their version here for the NES, but I do recall blackjack being the go-to game on the PC because I would just put as much money as I can and just keep playing blackjack because you got to make enough money to be able to do things in the game. So I will say they're very, how do you put it, very forgiving in this version on the Nintendo, like this guy in the barrel. I remember on the PC struggling a lot with that guy in the barrel. If you, in the respect that if you didn't buy or get an apple from that guy the one time you saw him, he doesn't come back. I mean, I think he comes by once, and then if you don't do what you need to do, or you didn't know better, and you're like, oh, I'm not buying an apple, then you pretty much got to reload your game because you're going to need that apple later down the road. And just those types of things that they kind of ensure it's going to be an easier experience for, say, a new time gamer to this game. I think this game is great for those respects. And it does work on both respects because a person like me that has beaten it on the PC, I find the enjoyment of going through this game and playing it on a whole different console. And even though it's extremely similar, it's still a completely new experience. And that alone makes this game worthwhile to own. I mean, I think it is great out there that in this day and age, you have avid companies out there making games for the original Nintendo still. And I personally want to support that in any way I can, and the best way I can support is by purchasing the games that they make. And it is just a great way to help the community to ensure that more great games are still going to be made for, in my opinion, the greatest console of all time, which is the original Nintendo. I mean, I remember when I started collecting Nintendo games, we'll say, I've always collected Nintendo games since the day I got Nintendo, but I mean, I remember when I really seriously started collecting when I was in college, and I was just thinking to myself, man, I need to collect and get and enjoy all these games because once I play the entire library, it was kind of a scary thing to me. It's like, man, if I've played every game that they actually produced for the original Nintendo, it seems like the fun stops right there. And I never at the time knew of homebrews or the extent that it goes to now. That you got these great companies that port different games for the original Nintendo or make a completely new different game, and you can actually buy the physical cartridge. That is not a donor cartridge. It is all made from scratch and own it. It's it blows my mind that even happens and the technology is out there and people are still enthusiastic enough to invest in making games like this for the NES. I am extremely grateful for quality games being made for the NES like this, and I mean, hacks are nice. They're fun. There's different hacks out there that you can hack a certain NES game and like change the sprites and maybe the level design, and that's really cool too. But a hack is limited to where, hey, this is kind of familiar. They hacked a certain game to get there. These games right here, where they were built from the ground up and are complete homebrew, these are where it just feels like, it's like going back in time and I'm at the store and I'm purchasing an original Nintendo game that I've never played before, and it's an entirely fresh new game. And that experience to still be able to have is great. I mean, it is limiting though in the respect that you gotta wait longer and you gotta kind of be up on the times of looking up for homebrews that are released. But they do come out a piece at a time. This one, for an example, that I'm enjoying here is pretty good. It's, I don't know how to describe it. There's just some kind of a fun, fresh, new look and feel when you're still able to buy an original Nintendo game that was built from scratch and you're plugging your Nintendo and play. Now, the hard part about all of this is making sure that in the future, how are people always going to be able to play this? And Nintendo's, even though it was one of the best sold systems of all time, they're slowly but surely diminishing, and I'm sure at one point they're going to get fairly rare. But I've noticed online that there's other technologies out there. I've noticed that there's different types of systems that they're starting to make. Not clone systems. I remember reading online about an analog NT or something, I think it was called. I might be saying it wrong. And it was actually an HDMI original Nintendo that is supposed to come out sometime this year, I believe. And it's really slick because from what I read, it's like the same components of an original Nintendo. It's not emulation. It's not like NES on a chip or any kind of generic stuff. It is like genuine hardware in there, I believe, and it actually has the 4 score built into it, so 4-player ability is immediately available, and it also supports, I want to say, HDMI component, RCA, maybe S video, like basically all the videos that you could possibly want on the system. And that alone is a cool thing that in this day and age we're still trying to prolong the life of the NES, and it's a two-way fight to keep the NES going. You got to have the great people that are investing the time and effort to build hardware that can still traditionally run original NES games and cartridges like that company does, and then you got to have these great guys that are actually designing software still for the NES, and it is just awesome. Now, I want to say I remember there being a slot machine on the PC version, definitely. I haven't played the PC version in at least 10 years, if not longer. And the slot machine version was kind of slow. But on this one, I do have to compliment, they definitely fine-tuned the slot machine, and it is very generous. It was not very difficult for me to kind of get my wallet up and going. I mean, right here I just get 3 winners in a row. I got about as much money as I need, and I'm in good shape right now. Now, I do remember in this point of the game, I didn't need more than $100 to get going, because I do remember way back in the day when I was playing this on the PC version, I sat there and I made all this money. I mean, I had like $1,000 or something on me, just because I was having a fun time playing the casino games, and I figure, hey, if I make all this money, I should be set throughout the game. Well, unfortunately, before that went and happened, I made all this money. I then went to a certain point in the game where you unfortunately lose all your money, and then you have to remake it all again. And it's like, man, I just made all this money and I have to redo it again. And it's like, ugh. So now that I learned that, I'm only going to get the bare minimum to get to that point that I know I'm going to lose my money later in this game. So then, I mean, it's not going to be, made. There's no bank in this game or place you can store your money so it doesn't get stolen at that point in the game. So I suggest a good technique is to just get about $150, no more than $200 if you want, until you get to the point in the game where you'll lose all your money. I mean, once you lose it all, then you find $10 in your hidden wallet. Like a certain part of your wallet's got a hidden compartment or something, and you keep $10, and then you have to go from there. I mean, that's just a pain in the butt, but from there you're gonna need a lot of money, so you got to make that $10 grow into about another, at least like $150, I think, to make sure it's easily gonna go through the rest of the game. Now here's a popular spot where I kind of goofed up when I was playing this. I forgot about having enough money on me. See, I only got $3 to my name, and at another interesting point in this game that I at least remember having trouble on the computer was I never really tallied up how much money it costs to always keep paying the cab driver. I mean, there were certain things in the PC version that you don't have these problems. In this version, they kind of made sure that you would avoid that problem, but I remember in the PC version, you would have to get in a cab, and then when he asks you to pay him, it wasn't automatic. Like on this one, it just automatically docks how much money from taking a cab ride. But in the PC version, if you type get out of cab before you type pay driver, then I believe the cab driver like beats you up and then you get a game over or something. So I mean, those like fine-tuned ways that you have to approach the game was very unique on the DOS version, and here they just can't exist, which is understandable the way they got it. But right here, luckily, I had at least $3 in my name, and now I gotta sit here and I have to turn this $3 into a little bit over $100. But luckily, I have the advantage of save state, load state, and I mean, I just don't understand. Yeah, I accidentally hit start out of there, so I gotta go back to continue, but it does load very quickly on here for an NES, which I think is awesome how well that works. But now I'm loading back in to try to get more money. There we go, make that $9. And I mean, this part of the game, I understand why it exists. There were a few Sierra games I remember back in the day that were just these tedious points I wasn't a big fan of, like Leisure Suit Larry here. You had to have to make money at the casino. I remember in Space Quest, you had to play a slot machine to get Buckazoids, I remember. And you know, it's just kind of a hassle. I mean, I will say that they did it gracefully on this game because the slot machine is pretty generous. It doesn't lose very often. I had pretty good luck of just getting the money in a fairly quick fashion. I have had horrible memories of the past of playing PC versions of Sierra games where you had to sit there and like rack up money by playing some type of luck-based game, and I would be saving and restoring constantly, and just no matter what, it took forever. But now here I have the $100 that's required to finish this part of the game, and it's just a little bit of a sidetrack, you know what I mean? You just kind of go by and you get this knocked out, and it works out pretty well. It's pretty funny that she sat and waited for you to go to the casino and make enough money. But regardless, this gets closer to the point where I kept making sure I just had the minimum amount, but since I haven't played this in so long, I just made a little bit over $100, and I really think the best route for you when you play this game is probably go and make about $250, and then that'll cover the $100. You gotta like give her $50 towards odds and ends of things you pick up, and then the $100 here that you gotta pay for the ceremony. And then it should give you at least a little bit of pocket money because you want a little bit on you just in case you accidentally forget you got to run to a different location. You're going to have to pay for extra cab rides and different things like that. So now we got married, we got that all taken care of for us, and I believe we have to go to the honeymoon suite. Now here I had a little bit of trouble just because probably it was late at night when I was playing this. That didn't help. I was trying to hit different buttons and I kept messing up the elevator, but I had to realize that you gotta walk in and out of the elevator, and as soon as it says the floor number, then I have to select the floor number. See, I was trying to, I don't know, click something else to make that pop up, but just for a trick, if you get to this elevator point, you want to walk into it, let that screen pop up, then tell it what floor level. Now I was cruising through and I passed the floor level I need to go to. You want to look for the one with the heart on the door, because I believe that was level 4, I think. Yeah, there we go, level 4. And right there on level 4 is the honeymoon suite that you got for your new bride that you just wined and dined by dancing with and giving all these great things to, because that's all it takes back then apparently. But it's kind of funny they put a heart above the door on this one. Or the reason I said heart on the door is because I remember in the PC version I could have sworn the heart was actually on the physical door. So now you come in here and she doesn't look very excited to see ya. That should be a red flag, Larry. And of course, as if she didn't put enough hoops for us to jump through, she insists on some wine. So the best solution, like any other man, let's just turn on the radio and hope a good station clicks on. So get some music going here, and I believe it you want to listen until, here we go, yeah, a commercial comes on. That Now this is one point of the game that I like a lot, compared to the PC version. One of the things that I did not enjoy in the PC version of Leisure Suit Larry and Sea games like this, when it came to a point that you like got a certain number for like a phone call to do, whether it be Leisure Suit Larry or maybe a code in like Space Quest or something, you had to write that down. I mean, I guess that's the fun of it back then, but I'm kind of over it now. And this one, all you had to do was experience it, like the action. Oh, and then over here I noticed this is all pretty new too. They put in some new jokes because in the original PC it looked just like this, and a guy said a whole bunch of corny jokes, and it's kind of funny that these are actually updated corny jokes. So that's a pretty cool thing. I sat here and then I let it shoot out a couple different jokes just to get an idea of how it is, and it's pretty humorous how they added their own little spin on that, and it works out pretty well. But back to like I was complaining about with writing down codes and stuff. In this one, that phone number, they say a phone number over the radio. You would have had written that down, and then you would have to go all the way back to the Quickie Mart, and then I believe you go to the phone, and then you have to type dial and then that phone number, and then I want to say you have to say what room number and stuff, and you got to be very detailed in how you type stuff. And I mean those kind of cryptic actions, I kind of like how that's smoothened over with this. This is just you triggered something, and now I can go to the phone here since I triggered a phone number on the radio, and then it's going to pretty much work out for me. I mean, I do have to put money in the phone, obviously, so I put that in the phone. Apparently, it takes $1 for the phone call, and then it dials the number for me automatically, whereas I believe you have to know the number, and then it wants to know like room numbers and stuff. So now you easily just hit a button on through this NES version, and it takes care of it for you. It's great. This part of the game I always thought was, I don't know, a little tedious or awkward, but I can see in general I didn't care for it in the game that you had to like get into phone number and then run back. But I guess you got to add to the length of the game, so it does have its purpose. Right here, that guy's always hanging out in front of the casino. On the PC one, I don't think he hung out that much. I think he like came by once and then just disappeared, never came by again. So right here we got ourselves I still ain't got this elevator figured out. There we go. We got it ordered, should be in business here, and we'll be in good shape. There's our heart. And now we should have everything we need. And yeah, it's just a whole lot of button mashing to get through. But it's kind of funny that I literally have not played this game in over 10 years. I ordered this game online from retrousb.com, and as soon as I received it, I pretty much popped it in and played through the entire game without any walkthroughs or anything. The only thing I had was literally what I remember of the PC version, and in this game you can kind of just button mash your way on through, whereas back in the past, if you had a text-based game like this, you couldn't just muddle through. Even text-based games I'm very confident in, like some of the King's Quest that I've played a lot in the past. There's always some section that I just would not remember exactly how you maybe have to type or do something, and I'd almost always have a reference in most of those games. Now, the point-and-click adventure ones are a little bit different. Those aren't as tricky as remembering certain text levels, but right here you can see exactly how it pans out. Larry tries to do everything right and he gets stuck, and luckily we got that knife from the wino. So now at least with that knife we can get ourselves farther. I remember this was frustrating. I remember back in the past when I was trying to figure out this game, I got to this point and I didn't know And I want to say the Wino didn't come out in front of the Quickie Mart that often. Like, he's hanging out there all the time in this one, which is great because it gives you less room for error in this game. But in the PC version, there were a lot of moments in the game that I remember that you just had that one chance or oddball chance of when somebody was passing by, you better take advantage of that, because if they zip by and you don't do the trade or transaction that you needed, it was very unlikely that they would pass by again. And that was just frustrating on the PC end. In this one, they totally corrected that, though. I mean, you're in pretty good shape here, to the point that you're not going to be as likely to be stuck in this game and have to redo the whole game again as you would be in the PC version. So it does have that going for it. Now, once again, we're back at the old slot machine, and we got to start making some money. More and more, but luckily this sucker is pretty generous, and you can just save every time you win. If only real life was like this. You just go to the casino and it only counts every time you win, but only in the virtual world here, guys. But no, moving forward with this game, it was very, very fun. I mean, there's no real bad aspect about the game. I mean, probably one of the only aspects I'd take is I just wanted maybe more from this game. Like, you enjoy it and you have such a good time with it, and there were like just certain parts or experiences, I should say, not parts, about the PC version that just didn't transfer over as seamlessly as you may have liked them to. But I think regardless, this thing was ported over very well. It's very fun. Its replay value is debatable on these types of games. I mean, just in general. Like, me personally, when it comes to games like this, or Sierra games in general, it's kind of, I don't know how to put it, like the few year rule. I mean, if you've beaten one of the Sierra games, you're not going to be picking up that game, I would say, at least for a year, if not longer, to beat again. I mean, it's just the whole experience of the story and trying to remember how to do certain parts in that. It's not as fun if you got it fresh in your mind and you already beat it recently or within a good period of time. It doesn't have that action replay value. Like, I don't know how to explain that. For text adventure games, it's got to be a longer gap of time for me to replay them, so then it kind of at least has a more of a fresh feeling when repeating. But then you have action-based retro games, in my opinion, like, say, original Super Mario Brothers on the NES. I could play that easily once a year and still have a fresh, fun enjoyment for it. Whereas, like, these text-based adventures, not so much. That's just my opinion, though, and preference. I mean, it might be different for others, but regardless, all these types of games are definitely enjoyable if you do them, we'll say, a piece at a time. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, to keep them all fresh, is most of these have plenty of sequels. So what I would do is, if I ain't played, like this one, I ain't played in 10 years, and since I played this one really motivated me and reminded me how much I like the sequel after it. I do remember that this one is great and classic, Leisure Suit Larry 1, and it definitely puts them on the map, and there's nothing really bad about the game at all. But there was something about Leisure Suit Larry 2, I just found that one to be more entertaining, a little bit more funny maybe. It had a lot of different aspects in it that were just crazy. Like, I remember in the sequel to this, you give them a phony lottery ticket number, and then you win all this lotto money. So money is not a problem throughout the entire game because you have the winnings of the lottery. And it was just a funny experience how they just worked that out throughout the entire game. So now right here, I remember this being real tricky on the PC. You had to type it a certain way so you didn't fall and have the rope on you and everything. And this one, they made it pretty easy. It's just select rope, you click in the right point, and it all just kind of automatically works out for you in this game. It's pretty slick how they did it. Once again, it's all debatable. It's like, hey, they made it a lot easier, and some people will be like, oh, you know, the challenge is completely gone. You can basically just muddle through the entire game. But you know what? I think at this point in time in the game, since this is a ported game, it's kind of a just to have fun. I mean, this game is not for like major skill or anything. I think it's just a great novelty that can help introduce newer generations that may be interested in experiencing the story for the first time on maybe a console because it is more accessible or easier, as opposed to you know, always trying all these crazy new games out there nowadays. It's kind of fun to always go back to the roots of so many older games, because without remembering the awesome history of the games that brought us to games of today, it's history in itself is definitely something that should always be appreciated and looked back on, no matter what the topic is. And that goes the same for video games. And if you can have a fresh new look at an awesome retro history game like this and then have it made, it's an awesome experience for all levels. Like I said, for people that's never played the game before, or for people like me that has grown up beating the game on the PC. It's fun for both parties for different ways and reasons. Now right here I was having a hard time because I remember there being a button on the desk, I want to say on the PC version, and then I didn't realize until I finally saw that button up on the wall, that's the button you gotta hit. And that's why I'm scrambling on the desk when I was doing that, because I thought it was just like the PC one. I remember it saying a button on the desk. But there we go, we finally got that button. And then there's a nice Ganon there. That's awesome that they added that on there. Pretty funny. And just all the little Easter eggs, the way the game was designed. I mean, everything about this is just awesome. I mean, if I did notice a lot of limitations and different stuff in this game, though, compared to the PC version, so I don't know if we'd ever see future other Leisure Suit Larrys be ported to this one, like maybe Leisure Suit Larry 2, because I recall that game being a very big game, and I don't know if maybe it's some limitation that it couldn't be. But once again, I always think back to that King's Quest V made by Konami on the original Nintendo, and that is a ginormous game that they faithfully ported to the Nintendo the best they possibly could. And that is definitely an extremely impressive feat, especially if you see this big PC game and they ported it onto a Nintendo cartridge. Maybe one of these days I'll do a long play of that one, just because King's Quest V is probably hands down my favorite King's Quest out of all of them. I mean, King's Quest VI comes in as a close second, but King's Quest V is just an awesome King's Quest game. But not to get too far off topic, we are wrapping up Larry here. I just basically muddled through, and there you have it, the end. And now this is where I have my torn feelings about this game. This game was an awesome idea. It was great. I bought it and I beat it in what, about 40 minutes here without trying. And when I say without trying, it just means, hey, with the memories that I had, you know, there may be other Easter eggs and other odds and ends I may not have seen that I could look up on facts, or maybe you guys can comment and be like, hey, you missed this and that. Maybe one day I'd go back and play that. But to tell you the truth, after doing this long play, I'm pretty much kind of done with this sucker. I don't know what would entice me to come back to it again, and the replay value of this is just not as good as I would wish it to be. But in all fairness, I think all games that are like this, the replay value is pretty low. But anyway, there you guys have it. There's Larry looking for a Luscious Lover, the long play I got for you. Maybe you guys can post comments of things that I may have missed in this game, or some Easter eggs. I'd love to hear your opinions and feedback. And like usual, I'll talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.